by other representatives who made this operation possible. Attorney General Steve Marshall, Alabama Law Enforcement Captain Burkett, who's here for Secretary Taylor, Madison County Sheriff Kevin Turner, Madison Police Chief Johnny Gandy, Lieutenant Joe Kennington of the North Alabama Task Force, who's the commander, Lieutenant Mike McCoy from Aaliyah, and Sergeant Carl Kissich, who is the North Alabama Drug Task Force supervisor. Now, to share the details about this particular operation, I'd like to turn it over to Lieutenant Joe Kennington.
Thank you, Chief. As Chief said, this is a historic event, and it was a very significant investigation. In November of 2023, the North Alabama Drug Task Force, alongside our Aaliyah partners with the Alabama Drug Enforcement Task Force, launched an investigation into the operations of Reginald Scott. He was the leader of an organization that was operating here in Huntsville, primarily out of the Emmington Heights community in North Huntsville. In March of 2024, with the information gained throughout the investigation, the Alabama Attorney General's Office and our Aaliyah partners applied for and were granted for the first time an intercepted communication order. This is an investigative tool that's used under the Agent Billy Clardy III Act, and this case resulted in the indictments of 22 people and the seizure of 24 pounds of cocaine, 278 pounds of marijuana, 220 grams of fentanyl, trafficking quantities of oxycodone and MDMA, $226,485 in drug proceeds, 10 firearms, 2 which were stolen, and 4 vehicles. The estimated street value, which is calculated by breaking it down in dosage, was over $4.8 million. This wasn't the work of just one person. It was the work of many. I want to thank, first of all, the agents and the investigators with the North Alabama Drug Task Force, with the Alabama Drug Task Force, Aaliyah Region F, with our Madison County Narcotics partners, our Morgan County Narcotics partners. You all were the boots on the ground. You worked long hours, and because of your relentless pursuit of justice, lives were saved. Some may say that the war on drugs sounds cliche, but it is real, and it's fought every single day. It's fought by some of the most prestigious warriors out there, and I'm honored to be on the front lines with them. To Chief Giles, Sheriff Turner, Chief Gandy, Secretary Taylor, our federal partners, and our other HIDTA executives, thank you for your continued support of our mission. Thank you for allocating resources to our task force that allows us to achieve success like this. To Attorney General Steve Marshall and his team, especially Vern Spears, thank you for working right beside our agents. And the work you did with the agents was priceless. Lieutenant Mike McCoy with Aaliyah, thank you for your leadership on both the case and the legislation, the writing of this bill. From the start to the finish, you were a pivotal part of this. Billy didn't just wear a badge, he carried the burden of a city. He believed in the impact that this unit makes, and he believed that it was worth every ounce of sacrifice, every long night, and every bit of effort. His loss is and was immeasurable, but his legacy is immortal. The law that bears his name is not just about enforcement, it's about honoring the mission that he gave his life for, protecting our neighborhoods, restoring hope to broken homes, standing firmly between our communities and the ones who are out there seeking to poison its members with narcotics. With tools like this axe, the strengths of our partnerships, there is no haven for drug dealers in our communities. With the knowledge of how to successfully apply this law, this is no longer a game of if, it's when the next drug organization is dismantled. This operation was only possible by partnerships And that's how we are so successful as the North Alabama Drug Task Force. And one of our most important partnerships we have is with the Madison County Sheriff's Office. And I'd like to turn it over to Sheriff Kevin Turner now.
Echo a little bit of what Lieutenant Kennington just said. This is what you get when you have partnerships. You know, prior to being the sheriff, I had the privilege of being a part of the STAC unit, which is now the North Alabama Drug Task Force. And I watched a lot of different investigators, a lot of different units come in over a 15-year period. And I have to say, the fire and the energy that Lieutenant Kennington and Lieutenant Mike McCoy and the investigators that are in this North Alabama Drug Task Force, what they do for the citizens of Madison County and the citizens of Huntsville is absolutely amazing. We can all sit up here as department heads, we can all sit up here and take the shine or the credit for it, but it's the guys that are running through those doors every single day, the guys that are out there on the streets, and the guys that are putting their lives on the line, just like Billy Clardy did. You know, Billy Clardy is what a narcotics officer was. He paid the ultimate price for it, and now we get to use the Billy Clardy Act that Rex Reynolds, the Attorney General, everyone, Mike McCoy, took the time to sit down and write the legislature. We get to use another tool to take drug dealers off the street. This is just a start. This is what the commitment of this county and this city does. And, you know, I see the mayor sitting over there, and I got to tell you, Mayor, you got the best drug unit that can be assembled right now. This is unbelievable work. And before I sit down, I need to make one comment to all the other drug dealers that are in our county. You know, we just didn't put 10 or 15 guys in jail. Hopefully they will be there the rest of their life. But what an investigation does, it allows us to learn more of who's dealing drugs in our community. And I guarantee you that the investigators in this drug task force is already working on the next drug trafficking organization. So if you sell dope in Madison County or in the city of Huntsville, we're coming after you, okay? Now, we couldn't get here today without probably one of the best mentors that I've ever had in my career, and probably to everyone else standing up here. Rex Reynolds, who is a state representative, is probably the most proactive law enforcement representative that I've ever seen. He started out as a sergeant over the drug unit here and worked his way up through the ranks and became the chief of police here, and now he's a state representative. But he has everybody that's wearing a gun and badge. He has our back, and he stands behind us, and I don't think that we could get here today without what he did with the legislature. So I'm going to turn it over to Rex, and we appreciate you.
Appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate that. Chief Giles, thank you for having me here today. I'll tell you, I continue to appreciate the hard work done by this drug task force, not just for this case, but every case they do, night in and night out. Just excellent work, as the Sheriff said. I'm honored to be in a position to bring such a critical tool to Alabama law enforcement. But I'll tell you, I could not do that on my own. I can't say enough about Speaker Ledbetter and his leadership in the Alabama legislature, and my colleagues that hung with us for 3 long years, Lieutenant. And many times, as the calendar would run out at midnight, I would look up there and Lieutenant McCoy was still sitting up there, and I'd text him. I said, "We're going to try again." So 3 years later, we were able to pass the Billy Clardy III Act, and certainly honored to do that. I also could not have done that, well, again, Lieutenant McCoy, the SBI, Steve Marshall, sir, you were there from day one, and I appreciate that. And you must have been watching TV, because you would text me at 11 o'clock at night and say, "Hey, hang in there. We'll get it back on the calendar again." And we certainly did that. And certainly the work that the Attorney General's office has done since the passage of that act to ensure compliance. That was something we heard from my colleagues, and we want to ensure that it's done right and certainly his office was involved in training throughout the state of Alabama, and certainly appreciate that. So certainly with the passage of Governor Ivey's Back to Blue legislation that I was honored to carry, and the public safety package, we got all those bills done except one. So there'll be one bill that I'll come back with next year, and that's providing scholarships to family members of law enforcement officers. We've got to continue that trend. And I will tell you, you heard me a lot in the well back to 2018, 2019, 2020, talking about how much our profession was under attack. Well, I will tell you that tide has changed. We're going to support our law enforcement, and we'll continue to do that throughout every legislative session. Thank you, and I think it's my honor to recognize and ask Attorney General Steve Marshall to come to the mic. And he is the top cop in Alabama, and he shows that all the time. There's probably not a week that goes by that I don't hear from him and his passion. I serve as the chairman of the Opioid Commission, and with not his help from him and his staff, that would not be a reality. Over $700 million that we're putting into the prevention, treatment, and recovery of those suffering from opioids. So, General, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rex. Let me echo some of what we've already heard. And I think, first and foremost, we need to acknowledge the man whose face is on the board before you. Sadly, I wish we didn't have a bill that was named in his honor. I think there's no one in here that wouldn't love for the fact that Billy would be standing up here taking down men and women's names that he knows that he worked desperately to take off the streets of this city. But yet, one of the things that I recognize from 25 plus years working with the brothers and sisters of law enforcement is they don't forget, they continue to honor, and they lift up those who serve with them. And today is a celebration of his life and his passion and his commitment to keeping the streets of this community safe. Yesterday I had the privilege of speaking here in town, and one of the things I shared is what a crown jewel this area is for the state of Alabama. And Mayor, part of that is your support, your council support of law enforcement, and what you do to be able to keep this community safe, providing the resources to be able to allow them to do that. I know Chairman McCutcheon as well likewise shares that dedication, and we wouldn't see results like this but for leadership that acknowledges the role that law enforcement has in communities and why that is so critically important. And the one thing that I hear from law enforcement is just give us the tools. Unleash us to be able to do their jobs. And although he is Representative Reynolds, I'm going to call him Chief because that's how I always know him. He worked diligently for 3 years. Y'all, this shouldn't have taken 3 years. It literally should not have taken 3 years to give law enforcement the ability to do at a state level what our federal partners could do in their own right. But he fought, he was diligent, he was consistent, and said, this is important for the state of Alabama. And Chief, you're right. And today validates it. And the fact that he chose to honor Billy's life and legacy with that bill, we've come full circle with the fact that today the first use of that investigative tool came to fruition, not only in Chief's community, but in Billy's community. And as a result of what they've done, we're safe. And maybe the greatest acknowledgement that I can offer today is, Lieutenant, to you and your team. Some of them are hiding in the back, by the way, and I get that because that's who they are. We have to acknowledge that these are men and women who spend an awful lot of time away from their families, early mornings, late nights, odd hours, because they saw value in taking what you see in those pictures off the streets. And Lieutenant told you about weights and dollar amounts. And then sometimes those get lost in the equation of the saved lives, the families that now will remain together, and those that we will not lose to addiction. Because, yes, criminal charges have been brought. Drugs have been taken off the streets. But what I know is prospectively, this county is safer, this county is more secure, and this community is better off because of the brave dedication of those who were a part of this operation. If you didn't have to think at all about the risk they take, we see it in the gentleman's picture that's over there, who gave that ultimate sacrifice because he cared enough to be able to protect and serve. Appreciate our team that was a part of this. Candidly, this was a first of its kind. It's not the norm. There was work to be done. We learned lessons as a result of this, and very grateful for the dedicated prosecutors on my team that were a part of this effort throughout. And I can tell you that somewhat, as we heard from the sheriff, this is just a start, not only in this community, but the opportunity to be able to do it moving forward. And the last thing that I do want to acknowledge is the significant work done by my friends at ALEA. I'm sad Secretary Taylor couldn't be here. He wanted to be able to be here, but it's through their resources that we're able to even be up using this technology. It's because of their commitment to being the agency that would lead this effort that Representative Reynolds was able to get this bill passed. And because of their commitment of resources around our state through the drug task forces to be able to do similar work that will make other communities in Alabama equally successful. And although I know the Secretary would want to be here, Jeremy, I know you want to be able to offer some words on his behalf.
Thank you so much, General Marshall. I'm Captain Jeremy Burkett with the Alabama Law Enforcement Agency, and again, I'm here on behalf of Secretary Hal Taylor. He sends his deepest regards to everyone. Unfortunately, he was unable to be here this morning, but he just wanted me to kind of come and share a few things real quick. I'll be brief. But for the Secretary, and again, I'm very careful how I speak on behalf of the Secretary, but for him, he took this personal. He really did, and everything that Representative Reynolds has done, Sheriff Turner, Chief Giles, and especially Attorney General Marshall, to really come together to really just honor and pay tribute to Billy, his sacrifice, and especially what Lieutenant McCoy has done to really just make this a realization. We just can't say enough. From ALEA, I can't say enough on behalf of the Secretary for his appreciation, and everything that they said is exactly right. You know, oftentimes we use analogies, or I use analogies, and one of the things just standing here listening to you, for people that may not understand the nuances of narcotics and investigations and wiretap and all the things that go on, you know, and especially in this state, you know, you think about football, and for me, you know, you'll hear people talk about you got to be good in all phases of the game. Right? You know, you hear football coaches talk about, hey, you got to be good in every phase of the game, offense, defense, special teams. And for us in law enforcement, this is what that goes back to try to give some perspective for what all this means. We've got to be good in all phases of the game. And then, of course, in football, it's important because there's titles and championships on the line. But in law enforcement, for us, lives are on the line. You know, and that really goes back to the core of what this is. I know it gets really complicated. There's a lot of things going on with this, but that's the reality. But you've just got to go back to the partnership. Whenever you're able to bring, and this is my humble opinion, just true professionals. I mean, when I, you know, standing here today to be just able to be here and be a part of this, just looking at this group of individuals, this is a true group of law enforcement professionals. So that's what we're committed to do. And again, on behalf of Secretary Taylor, we're honored to be a part of this. We're honored to just be able to be in the same room with these gentlemen, the same room with these men and women, exactly what Sheriff said, exactly what Chief Giles said. Every one of y'all said it's really about the individuals that are out there executing this every day. So again, on behalf of Secretary Taylor, I thank y'all so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Burkett. So, in wrapping this up, this case proves that when state, local, and federal agencies work together, we can take down dangerous organizations like the one we presented to you today. The North Alabama Drug Task Force, being backed by strong laws like the Agent Billy Clardy Act, is a force to be reckoned with in the fight against illegal narcotics. And I'm going to piggyback off of what Sheriff Turner said, and I want to be very clear that you understand what I'm fixing to say. If you are trafficking drugs in our community, we will find you, we will investigate you, and we will shut you down. I want to thank our partners, as everybody had just mentioned. I also want to thank our officers and the men and women, their commitment to this, the risks they took, the hours they put in, and they were able to stay focused until this was done. Your work changes lives and saves lives. So I want to thank you, and with that, Sergeant Jackson will come up and we'll open the floor for questions.
Thank you. We're going to open the floor to questions. I will ask for organization-wise if you will call on the person that you would like to ask the question to so that they can make sure that they're at the podium for you. But with that, I'm going to give you about 5 to 10 minutes.
Lieutenant Kington, Dallas Parker from Channel 19. A couple questions for you. You spend a lot of time with this investigation. How complex are these operations to dismantle? I mean, have you noticed that they become more difficult in recent years to dismantle?
Well, the length of time, I mean, we started it in November. We had history about the organization prior to that, but you have to reach a certain point before you can take it to the next level. So we started the main investigation in November and worked up to March, which then went on for another month or so after that. These types of cases are very complex. I mean, their ultimate goal is to avoid law enforcement. And as time goes on, technology comes out and just different ways to communicate, different ways to move, different ways to take money. I mean, there's so many different things that these investigators have to learn to counter. And it's a learning process every single day that we come out there. But their goal is to avoid us. Our goal is to get them. They may win the first year. They may win the second year. But the dope game, as they call it, is just that. It's a game. There's a beginning and there's an end. And we're usually there at the end waiting.
And just a quick follow-up for you. In terms of the people we see on the board up there, can you kind of summarize some of the charges they're facing? Because I'm sure it's pretty blatantly obvious, but...
Yeah, well, I mean, a large majority of them are conspiracy charges. We will release the exact charges later on today, maybe tomorrow. It would take a while for me to go through each individual charge.
Follow-up, will you go through what the Billy Clardy III Act generally is? I know we kind of know what you guys used in this specific investigation, but if there was more details about the actual act.
Yeah, I'm going to let Rex come up and cover that.
Thank you for that question. So the wiretapping legislation does just that. It provides at the state level the authority for law enforcement to conduct a wiretap, and there are a lot of provisions in that bill that these investigators have to go through to meet certain thresholds before they ever get to the Attorney General's office. It'll have to go through ALEA and through their command for oversight, and there's compliance measures throughout. Certainly, because that was such a concern to my colleagues, I took the time to go over and spend about 2 hours with them to ensure that all those measures were in place so that I could go back to the microphone and tell them that they have done everything that we asked them to do in the legislation. And so, again, you know, there's Title III federal wiretaps available now. But with the great law enforcement talent that we have in Alabama, we felt like we could do that at this level, and today shows that.
Representative Reynolds, just a quick follow-up. In terms of this legislation specifically and the timing of it all, why name this bill specifically after Agent Clardy? What's the specifics of that?
Well, actually, that came from this drug unit. I received a call from Lieutenant McCoy as we were kind of working through the legislation. You know, anytime you have something of this magnitude, you know, you spend a lot of time in front of the Judicial Committee in the Alabama Legislature. So we made some adjustments as we went along. We learned things from year to year, and the timing was right to do that. I think as the General Marshal said, he stood for everything that these men work day and night for. And we're blessed in the legislature. We're not out there on the front line, so all we can do is be in a position to support these men and women and the fight that they're doing. And we don't write this legislation, right? It's the law. It's the attorneys from the Attorney General's office. It's the attorneys from Aaliyah. We've got great attorneys in the legislature, but they know what they need to do their job. We just need to give it to them. Yes, sir.
WF at 48 for Attorney General Steve Marshall. So looking back at the first conviction related to this act with Reginald Scott, looking at the fact that he had 4 prior felony drug offenses, he'd been going back and forth, he was able to commit these over and over. Is this why, one of the reasons why this act is so important, to get those people off the streets for good?
I mean, clearly, yes. When we have habitual offenders, we want to be able to take them off the streets. But without disclosing the details of this investigation, as a result of the tool that Rex Reynolds gave this outstanding law enforcement agency, we expanded that board. Because as a result of the wire, they had additional information that otherwise would not have been actionable, which would not have allowed them to be able to take next steps. And so the whole desire here is to give our law enforcement professionals additional tools to take bad guys off the streets. It's not complicated. But what I know, as a result of working with them for so long, is they are absolutely pure in the mission of what they want to be able to accomplish. And what Rex did was truly revolutionary in our state. We did not have a state wire to be able to use. And look, I love my friends at the DEA and our federal partners, but they've got their own investigations. And this gives us the opportunity to be targeted in communities that want to put in the resources. And I mentioned Mayor Battle earlier. I mentioned Chairman as well. They got to be willing to pay the overtime it takes to be able to run these wires. This isn't something that's easy and takes a short amount of time. This was, and Lieutenant, I think, is understating it, frankly, the man hours that it took for those months to be able to do this. But the ultimate goal is very straightforward, is remove the bad guys from the streets. And I think you've also heard it very clearly from the chief and from the sheriff, create a disincentive for others to be able to do the same thing. Because I can guarantee you, and I know Rob Broussard well, he is ready and prepared to prosecute every drug dealer that's doing bad things on the streets. And to the extent this gives us a tool to be able to enhance those efforts, then everyone ought to celebrate that. And this is today a good day for what we're going to be able to do, not only in this community, but around our state.
Real quick, Carson Killed, Fox 54, yes. Just real quick, are you aware of any other state law enforcement agencies or local law enforcement agencies that are using this act at this time, or are you not able to disclose that?
That was a great observation at the end. We wouldn't disclose that, obviously. Look, Aaliyah would be involved. Our office would be involved in what's going on. We look forward to having the opportunity to be able to do it around the state. Now, these are unique investigations that allow us to be able to do it because you can't just have a 2-person drug operation, right? It's the beauty of the vision of Rex Reynolds to see Aaliyah within kind of the framework of coordinating this because they are all over the state. And so what we hope is that not only those investigations I'm aware of come to fruition, but this lights a little bit of a fire in folks to say, let's take advantage of this in our community as well. Let's devote the resources to be able to do it. So when Mayor Battle goes to his next mayor's meeting, he can share with his colleagues across the state, because we made this commitment, we're safer in Madison County. I hope that message gets shared far and wide. But right now, we know that there are other things in the works and look forward to other events like this to be able to celebrate those successes.
Dallas, Page, Carson, Noah, Storm, thank y'all for your time in covering this. We are going to conclude the questions at this time. As you can see, many in this room have a lot of tasks and assignments that they have to get to, so we're going to wrap this up.